Emily LeBlanc here. I'm here to talk to you guys today about the importance of meaningful conversations and how to achieve them. So I chose to talk about this topic because I have definitely struggled with it. I have struggled with those moments when I'm meeting someone new and I can't think of questions to ask them, or they can't think of questions to ask me, or the responses are sort of poor and impersonal. And I've just, when you just can't get past that small talk, when you can't get past talking about the weather, it's really frustrating. And it's important because conversing is in everything we do, whether it's verbally or non-verbally, and it's good for our health, it's good for our relationships, it's pretty much good for everything to be able to be competent and developed in our having those meaningful conversations. So that is why I thought it would be really important, and I was so excited when I got assigned this topic, and I've been having a great time learning about it. So the problem with small talk. The thing is, small talk actually is great. It's really important in building those conversations, making someone comfortable with you and you being comfortable with someone else. Just opening that door for that budding relationship, or just leading into more meaningful conversations. But it becomes a problem when you can't really get into small talk that turns into meaningful conversations, whether it's because you're struggling with your responses or your questions, or because you can't stop asking small talk questions or just doing the small talk. And when you have that problem, when you can't seem to, when your problem isn't so much the conversation itself and knowing what to talk about or how to talk about it, but your problem is that you have so much small talk to talk about that you don't get into ever more meaningful conversations. The problem is that can lead to a lack of intimate relationships, and also maybe built up feelings and emotions that are can obviously lead to some negative things. So both of those aspects can be harmful for ourselves, our mental health, and our relationships. So that's the problem with small talk. Not so much that small talk is bad, it's actually great. It's when you can't get past it is the problem. That's when the problems start. I read this really great article by Caroline Lynn called "Ask This Question When You Are When You Want to Skip the Small Talk and Cut to the Chase." And it's that question that she talks about is, how can I help? This is a great question to ask in those business, maybe relationships, as well as maybe more developed relationships, of cutting out that fluff, cutting out the 30 emails before, and just saying, what do you need? How can I help? Tell me how to do it. And in those situations, asking those questions asking that question, I should say, is extremely important. The other article I read was called "One Simple Habit That'll Make You Great at Conversations." And it was by Charlie Houpert. So Charlie Houpert talked about how you need to develop your answers that you might give to someone. So when you look at what a person looks like when they're competent in this skill, some of the things that they have are they're having a solid understanding of the importance of meaningful conversations. They're caring and genuinely want to know more about people. And also, they ask questions that lead to more of a solid answer than just yes or no. More maybe a story, or just something more intimate than yes or no, or a one-word answer. And also asking people more why questions and giving meaningful answers. So that's when Charlie Houpert's article comes in, is the giving meaningful answers. So say someone says, "Oh, so where are you from?" And I could say, "Oh, I'm from Portland." Where are you from? That doesn't lead to much. But if they say, "Where are you from?" and I say, "Oh, I'm from Portland. Portland's really great. It has this place called Columbia Gorge, and I love to go there with my family and go hiking," and you maybe turn it into a story. You maybe turn it into opening yourself up and talking about something you enjoy about it, instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm from Portland." And by doing that, you lead to maybe them sharing a story, you sharing stories, you guys connecting, and it leads to a lot more. So I think those are some great aspects of being competent in this skill. So how to take small talk, how to take action and move past small talk. So this comes from another article I read by Harvey Deutschendorf. I have to look. He has an interesting name. Deutschendorf. So he talks about 5 great ways to have a great conversation. And these 5 ways are: get out of yourself and make it about the other person. 2, practice active listening. That means listening to understand, not to answer. 3, move the conversation to a deeper level. Don't be afraid to make eye contact. Don't be afraid to open yourself up. Don't be afraid to respond when they open themselves up. And 5, consider the time and space. So that means, say you want to talk to someone who you know is struggling, and you give them a call, and they start to, open up to you. And 2 minutes later you say, oh, hey, actually I have to go. I have class right now. That's not really a great way to treat that person if they're opening up to you, and then you just cut them short. So consider the time and space before you start that conversation, and maybe say, hey, let's come back to this conversation. I really want to have it, but I don't have the time. So the activities that I have practiced are the first 2, which I have talked about them a little bit. And I haven't gotten to practice the 3rd one yet. So I'm really excited to work on that activity, and I will let you know how it goes in the comments. So the first one is think about typical small talk questions and turn them into questions that provoke more of a story or just anything more than a 2-worded response. So simply, instead of, hey, how are you today? Or how was your day? Oh, it was good. You ask, hey, what was your favorite thing you did today? Or, hey, what was the least favorite thing you did today? I don't know. And that leads to more of a response, more of a story, more of a more personal conversation. 2, think about how you reply when people ask you questions. So again, with the Portland example, you give them, maybe you have sort of developed your answer a little more. And 3, this is the one I have not tried yet, but I really am excited to try. And it's a little more, it might be a little awkward at first, but I think it's important. And that is, try talking to someone that you feel comfortable with and practice active listening by repeating what they tell you. So if they tell you a story, you repeat it to them. And again, that could be awkward maybe, so that's why you should do it with someone you feel comfortable with. But I can see the benefits of that, and I'm excited to try it. So my interview. I interviewed my awesome husband because I think he's a really great example of someone who's excited and just really actually interested in people. He loves learning about people, talking to people, and he loves hearing about their interests, which I really appreciate. And my husband's actually always been great with people, naturally. It wasn't until college he sort of decided to hone in on those conversation skills. And he just focused mostly on active listening as well as focusing more on that person rather than talking about himself. So the 3, I think the best 3 pieces of advice he gave me was to be an active listener. Ask why. So maybe someone says, you say, hey, how are you? And they say, oh, I'm not doing so great. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry, you say, oh, why? And that opens those doors, which is obviously extremely important to develop that conversation and that relationship. Be willing to ask why. And it doesn't have to be something so, maybe something sad. It can be something happy as well. The other one that I thought was awesome was meaningful talk isn't always 100% of the conversation. So it's not always going to be meaningful. Sometimes you maybe go in and out of the meaningful conversation. So maybe you're having a conversation and then you sort of get to the end of that topic and you start having that small talk again. And then you start to talk about something that is more meaningful or engaged, and you start talking about something else. And again, meaningful conversation, to me at least, doesn't mean you're talking about something really heavy or important or deep. It just means you're engaged. You're learning more about that person. That to me is what meaningful conversation is. So some tips and tricks for you to try, and these are ones that I've been trying as well. The first one is very important to me, is be patient with yourself and be forgiving. So I have the struggle of looking back at conversations that I have had in the past and being like, I should have asked him this, or why did I ask him that, or I should have said something more, or and just looking back at that. It's okay to look back at those conversations, but instead say, hey, that's something I should work on next time, and forgive yourself. It's okay. 2, think of a handful of things that you would like to know about the person or people in general. I think the biggest thing about this for me, one of the biggest things, is pre-think some things, and that's okay. Ask more why questions, as I said. Remember that most people like to talk about themselves. That's a great go-to. Tell me about yourself. Ask those types of questions. People usually are pretty willing. It's easy. It's somewhat comfortable for some people, maybe more comfortable than they think, to talk about themselves. And also, as I already said again, have some of your own answers thought out as well. That's a big help. So why should it matter to you? I think most of us have had awkward situations. I hope I'm not the only one who've had those struggling moments where you're maybe stuck in silence or, whatever it may be. It can be uncomfortable. It can be disappointing. It can be frustrating when we want to have that conversation, when we want to get to know that person, and we just can't. It's frustrating. And like I said also in the beginning, some people are really great at small talk, but if you do it for too long, you start to not have those meaningful relationships, and that can be a problem as well. So by working on having meaningful conversations, and as well as transitioning from small talk to deeper communication, I think we'll really be blessed with the ability to have more new friendships, getting to know more people, and developing the relationships we already have. So I encourage you to try some of the things that I tried. This has been a really great process for me personally, being able to try these things and learn more about it and read these articles. I've really appreciated it, and I do see changes, especially with my comfortability in talking to people in that small talk moment and moving it past that. So I just, again, really encourage you to try what I've talked about. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.